Hi everybody, today I'm here with another reading progress video and also rating books that I recently finished. First we're going to start with To Shape a Dragon's Breath. This book was recommended to me by Carrie Kent Reeds. She read it last year at some point and I was influenced by her to pick it up at the bookstore, and I bought this at Longfellow Books in downtown Portland probably last Halloween, around there, and I am currently on page 322. The next book I recently finished reading is Zom Rom-Com, which is Olivia Dade's new book. I was first introduced to her books last year by a former friend. Her name is Kate. And the first book I read by her was At First Bite. This is a romantic comedy that is set on the set of a horror movie, a zombie horror movie, and I just loved this book. Was a lot of fun. As somebody who is into acting, I really enjoyed getting to know the couple in this book and to answer one of the discussion questions. Would you rather wear macrame bikini briefs or sheepskin thong? Which one would result in the most intraceable and chafing wedgie? I would have to say either, because I think thongs are uncomfortable, and I'm not sure the texture of a macrame bikini would really be comfortable for me to wear. The next book I am currently reading, I just started it yesterday, is called The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. My mother-in-law, Sally, let me borrow this. It is a modern retelling of the King Arthur legend that was published last year, I think. And I am currently on page 70. Whoa. Okay. The next book is called The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. I first read Ocean Vuong earlier this year, back in the springtime during National Poetry Month, when I read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, which was on recommendation from me from, I believe, Jack Edwards read it. So this is Ocean Vuong's new release that came out in April for National Poetry Month. And so far, I just started this yesterday along with The Bright Sword, and I am only on page 48. So I'm not very far into this one yet. The next book that I picked up is called The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This book was recommended to me by Kayla at Books and Lala, and she read it in her series where she read a book from every year that she has been alive. So this book was published in 2001. So I selected this book for the subset of the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR, because this book came out during season 8 of Friends and season 2 of Gilmore Girls. And currently I am on page 361. The next book I am currently reading is called A Summer for the Books by Michelle Lindo Rice. This is a new author that I picked up on the adult fiction shelf at the library. This book is about a writer and a bookstore owner who meet on the beach. The bookstore owner is actually trying to recover from amnesia because she got in a really bad accident and can't remember her past. and Jewel and Shelby were friends, and they got into a fight, but because of her accident, Shelby cannot remember the fact that they were in an argument. So I started this book on last Thursday, and I am on page 175. The next book I am reading, I just picked up at the library yesterday. It's by an author I have never heard of before. I just went into the adult section of the library and started browsing and came across this book. It's called On the Corner of Hope in Maine by Beverly Jenkins. I feel like I've heard of her before, or maybe I'm mixing her up with somebody who Sarah Without an H talked about, because there's a book that I want to read called Undercover Amish that Sarah Without an H recommended, and I don't know if that was an older book by this author. Regardless, I'm really enjoying this book so far. I love the writing style of this author. This is, I can tell you, Trent July has been the mayor of the historic town for the past 4 years, but he's ready to let someone else take up the mantle. Barrett Payne, a former Marine, decided he wants the job, but when a surprise candidate also enters the ring, the town has strong opinions on who would be the best choice. And that's not the only dream, as Mal July continues to make reparations for the damage he's caused and the people he's betrayed, especially his lady love Bernadine. Is she finally ready to forgive him and let the past go? As the residents of Henry Adams have learned, life will throw out obstacles their way, but it's how they come together and rise above these challenges that keeps their hands on this close-knit community strong. So, I really like this author's writing style, and I love the small town setting of this book. I started reading this series out of order, unfortunately, so now I have to go back and read from the beginning because I feel like I missed a lot of character development, so I'm going to have to start this series from the beginning. Currently, I am on page 113. The next book was recommended to me by Gabby over at Gabby Reads. It's called Murder by Memory, which is a short sci-fi novella about actually, I will read you what it says here. Welcome to the Fairweather, Her Majesty's most luxurious interstellar passenger liner. Room and board are included. New bodies are graciously provided upon request. Should you desire a rest between in lifetimes, your mind shall be carefully preserved in the library, shielded from every danger. Near the topmost deck of an interstellar generation ship, Dorothy Gentleman wakes up in a body that is not hers, just as someone else is found murdered. Dorothy suspects her misfortune is partly the fault of her feckless nephew Ruthie, or perhaps the sultry yarn store proprietor and current suspect knows that more than she's letting on. As one of the ship's detectives, Dorothy usually delights in unraveling passenger schemes, but with someone not only killing bodies but purposely deleting minds from the library, she realizes something more sinister is afoot. Someone has found a way to make murder on the Fairweather a very permanent state indeed. So this is a short novella. I'm trying to pace myself with it because it is so short. I am on page 47 and it is only 97 pages. So I have about 30 pages left. The next book that I am reading is a reread of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. So this is part of my From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR. As a preface, I started the Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR last year, and this was one of the first books I read. Kathleen and I only started reading books and reviewing TV show episodes in movies for this TBR together in January. So I'm a little bit further ahead of her, generally speaking, in my reading, because I started this TBR myself last September, and Wuthering Heights was one of the first books I picked up. So how this book is connected to Friends is in the one with Ross's Sandwich. Phoebe, Monica, and Rachel take a night class at the New School where they study American literature, and they read this book and also Jane Eyre. And I feel like the directors of Friends probably picked this book for the specific episode of Friends because the main couple, Catherine and Heathcliff, have a very similar dynamic that Ross and Rachel have throughout this series when they're in and out of dating each other. And that's initially why I stopped reading this book the first time, but I decided I didn't give it a fair chance, and that's why I'm reading it again to see if I still feel the same way. If you are looking for a modern interpretation of Wuthering Heights, I recommend to you Lane Fargo's release from February called The Favorites, which is basically a modern retelling of this book that is set in the world of competitive figure skating. So if you think back to like the 90s when Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding were competing against each other in the Olympics, the stakes in this book, The Favorites, are as high as they probably were during that time. Like, I was I was only 7 or 8 when Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding competed in the Olympics, so I don't remember much about that Olympic season. But please read The Favorites. I gave that book 4 stars. It's awesome on audio, by the way. This book was originally 2.5 stars just because I couldn't stand the main couple. But now that I'm reading it again, I'm enjoying the buildup of their relationship a lot better than I did the first time around. So another recent book I read that has a similar kind of dynamic with Heathcliff and Catherine. I'm not sure if this is a good comparison to make, but I would say Wyn and Harriet from Happy Place by Emily Henry are kind of similar. Maybe because they're arguing the whole time because they're in the middle of a breakup or something. But I find Catherine and Heathcliff and Wyn and Harriet equally as insufferable. The next book that I am reading right now is The Archive of the Forgotten by A.J. Hackwith. I first read a book of A.J. Hackwith 2 years ago in 2023. The first book I read of hers, A.J. Hackwith. The first book that I read of hers 2 years ago was The Library of the Unwritten, which was recommended to me by, I believe, Riley Marie, and then last November, she came out with a retelling of The Wizard of Oz from Toto's perspective, appropriately named Toto, which I gave 4.5 stars to. Currently, I am on page 127, chapter 13. The next book I am reading at the moment is called The Broposal by Sonoya Reyes, the best-selling author of The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. I feel like Sarah without an H has read The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, and she gave it 4.5 stars. This book is about a male couple named Kenny and Han, who are in college, I believe. They are the cover says they are best friends and fake fiancés. So I love their dynamic. I think they are a very sweet couple. So this book has trigger warning at the beginning, and one of them is ICE, police, racial profiling, immigration issues, because Kenny is Han is I believe he is Chinese. Oh, here's the author's note. While this book deals with the very real experiences of living as an undocumented person in the United States, it is not meant to be educational or informative. Immigration laws and experiences vary widely and can be enforced differently from year to year, state to state, and person to person based on a myriad of factors, none of which are universal. A novel also necessitates a shorter timeline, and some details have been adjusted accordingly. This story is close to my heart and is told with tremendous love and care. That said, the focus is primarily on feelings, not logistics. There will be no play-by-play on how to get a green card or detailed descriptions of immigration law. However, if you'd rather laugh and swoon and possibly cry over a love story between an emotionally constipated himbo and his sensitive people-pleaser best friend, look no further. So the main characters in this book are Han and Kenny. Han is the undocumented one. I'm pretty sure he's from China, and he's also autistic, and I love his representation of I love how this author wrote the autistic character. I thought she did a really great job. I just started this book on Sunday, and I am already on page 160. The next book I'm reading is Erin A. Craig's new release, A Land So Wide. This was recommended to me by Carrie over at Carrie Can Reads. She received the arc of it a couple of months ago, and she gave it 4.5 stars. Erin A. Craig also read House of Salt and Sorrows, House of Roots in Ruin, and The 13th Tale, which I gave The 13th Child, which I all gave 4.5 stars to. And this book will probably be rated exactly the same because I just love her writing style and her world building. I started this on Sunday as well, and I am on page 199, chapter 15. The next book that I am reading is Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor, and this is the first book I have read by this author. I cannot remember who on Bookstagram has recommended it to me. It might have been Carrie, it might have been with Cindy, it might have been Rachel Catherine, I don't quite remember. I also feel like I have seen this on a few recommendation lists on Instagram as well. This book is about a girl named Una. It's set at New Year's Eve, 1982, and she has a whole life before her, but she gets stuck in a time warp where she gets to see where she gets to play her life, where she gets to, like, go back in time and see her life play out in different scenarios. So, one post I saw on Instagram a few minutes ago compared this book to The Time Traveler's Wife, but the way the time jump plot is integrated, it also reminds me of Groundhog Day, with Bill Murray. I just started this book this morning, and I am on chapter 7. The final book I am rereading for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is The Shining by Stephen King. So this book is featured in the episode of Friends from season 3. Season 3, episode 14, the one where Monica and Richard are just friends. The main plot of this episode focuses on Monica and Richard reconnecting after they have broken up. The secondary plot focuses on Joey and Rachel exchanging books. Joey is reading this book, and he keeps it hidden in his freezer because it scares him too much. So when Rachel goes in the freezer looking for ice, she finds the book in the freezer, asks him why it's in the freezer, and he says it's in the freezer because it's too scary and it gives me nightmares. So Rachel is reading Little Women, so her and Joey explain Little Women. They exchange books, and she reads The Shining, and Joey reads Little Women, and there is a scene where Rachel and Joey are sitting in the coffee house, and they basically spoil how each book is going to end for each other, and Joey gets really upset with his spoiler that he gets, because Rachel basically tells her that Beth dies, and Ross says to Rachel, "You just spoiled the only book that Joey has ever read that does not have a movie that stars Jack Nicholson." And then in a later scene, Joey comes over to Monica and Rachel's apartment to talk to Rachel, saying that he just reached the part in the book where Beth passes away, which obviously is or Beth gets sick with scarlet fever. And like he's really upset because Beth is really sick. And Rachel says to him, "Joey, do you want to put the book in the freezer?" And he says, "Yeah." So I read this book last fall, and Matt and I watched the movie with Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. We really liked the movie because of all the cinematography and the spooky scenery of the Overlook Hotel. This book got 3.5 to 4 stars for the scenery, but I didn't really like how abusive Jack was to his son, and I think Shelley should have just left him at the hotel on his own and taken Danny with him. Danny is the 8-year-old son who Jack is really abusive to. And the kid who played Danny in the movie is probably one of my favorite child actors in a movie, besides Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, and Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen in It Takes Two, and Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap. Other books that I have recently read for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR are If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This is a new release that just came out a couple of weeks ago. The library somehow got a hold of it a month early, so I actually read it on like August 17th. This book is set in Vermont, so I actually took it away with me this past weekend when Matt and I went away on vacation. And as you can see, this couple looks very much like Lorelai and Luke. The main male character's name is Cliff, and the main female character, who I'm not gonna lie, does look a lot like Lauren Graham. Her name is Michelle. And this little dog, his name is Rocket, and he reminds me of Paul Anka, who is the dog that Lorelai adopts from the animal shelter once Rory goes away to college. So, as I said, I read this book last month, and in my reread, I am on chapter 23. The next book that I read this month for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is All the Way. This is by Kristen Proby, the same author as Wild for You, which Kathleen and I will be reviewing in our wrap-up in December when we read the November and December books. So this book is part of Kristen Proby's Romancing Manhattan trilogy, which is a set of 3 books that are set in New York City. And obviously, I picked it for the TBR because it's set in New York City, like Friends is. And I picked If It Makes You Happy for the TBR for 2 reasons. One, because it has a playlist of songs in the front of all songs from the 1990s. So these songs are all songs that I listened to when I was in middle school and high school. The title of the book is named after the song If It Makes You Happy by the Cranberries. Other songs on this playlist include Save Tonight by Eagle Eye Cherry, Head Over Feet by Alanis Morissette. Oh, I'm sorry, If It Makes You Happy is by Sheryl Crow, not the Cranberries. One Headlight by the Wallflowers, There She Goes by Sixpence None the Richer, and Say You'll Be There by the Spice Girls. So I haven't listened to this playlist yet, but I'm definitely going to listen to it. I gave If It Makes You Happy 4.5 stars because of the Vermont scenery. The small town of Copper Run, Vermont is very similar to Stars Hollow. This couple, as I said, is very similar in dynamic to Luke and Lorelai, and I love that this character looks like Lauren Graham. I don't know if that was the intention of this cover artist, Eva Garcia, but it totally does look like Lauren Graham, who plays Lorelai on Gilmore Girls. And then, as I just said, All the Way is set in New York City. And I also like the development of the relationship between London and Finn. The next book is Sangu Mandana's new release. Her first book that I read last year was called The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which got 3.5 stars for me. This book, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, was delightful. It was so much fun. So I picked this book for the TBR because it's about witches. It's about 2 witches named Sarah. Okay, actually, one character is a witch. Her name is Sarah, and she opens her own inn in her hometown. And Luke is okay, I will just read you the summary of this book. Sarah Swan used to be one of the most powerful witches in Britain. Then she resurrected her great aunt Jasmine from the very recently dead. Lost most of her magic, befriended a small, villainous talking fox, and was exiled from her guild. Now she slightly reluctantly, and just a bit grumpily, helps Jasmine run an enchanted inn in Lancashire, where she deals with her quirky guests' shenanigans, tries to keep said talking fox in check, and longs for a future that seems lost to her. But then she finds out about an old spell that could hold the key to restoring her power. Enter Luke Larson, a handsome and icy magical historian who arrives on a dark autumn evening and just might know how to unlock the spell's secrets. Luke has absolutely no interest in getting involved in the madcap goings-on of the inn, and is definitely not about to let a certain bewitching innkeeper past his wills. So no one is more surprised than he when he agrees to help Sarah with her spell. Worse, he might actually be thawing. Running the inn, reclaiming her lost magic, and staying one step ahead of the watchful guild is a lot for anyone, but Sarah Swan is about to discover that she doesn't have to do it alone, and that the weird, wonderful family she's made might be the best magic of all. I love the found family that Sarah finds in the group that she works with at the inn. And again, like in If It Makes You Happy, the couple in this book also reminds me of a couple of Gilmore Girls characters, but unlike in If It Makes You Happy, it's not Luke and Lorelai. Well, it could be Luke and Lorelai, technically, but also I think it's Lorelai and Michelle who work together at the Independence Inn, because Sarah is definitely Lorelai because she's really energetic, and Luke can either be Luke Danes or Michelle. Michelle is the French-Canadian person who works at the front desk at the Independence Inn. I forget the actor's name who plays him, and Luke Danes is obviously the owner of Luke's Diner, who is played by Scott Patterson. This is the perfect cozy fall read, especially going right now. It is September 17th. Halloween is about a month and a couple weeks away. So if you're looking for a good book to read for spooky season, I highly recommend this book. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. The last new release I'm talking about today is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. Her release from last year, called A Novel Love Story, got 5 stars for me. And this book, all of Ashley Poston's books have magical realism as part of the plot. This book is no different. Joni Lark has a secret. She's one of the most coveted songwriters in Los Angeles, and yet she can't write. There's an emptiness inside her, and nothing seems to fill it. When she returns to her hometown of Vienna Shores, North Carolina, she hopes that the sand, the surf, and the concerts at the Revelry, her family's music venue, will spark inspiration. But when Joni gets there, nothing is how she left it. Her best friend is hiding something, her mother's memories are fading fast, and the Revelry is closing. How can Joni write when her world is leaving her behind? Then she hears it, a melody in her head, lyricless and half-formed, an alluring, addictive voice to go with it, belonging apparently to a wry musician with an emptiness of his own. Surely he's a figment of Joni's overworked imagination. Then, a very real man shows up in Vienna Shores. He's arrogant and guarded, not at all like the sweet, funny voice in Joni's head. And he has a plan for breaking their inconvenient telepathic connection. Finish the song haunting them both and hope they don't risk their hearts or their secrets in the process. Because that melody, the one drawing them together? What if it's there for a reason? So the cool thing about this book is that each title is the title of a popular song. So let me give you some examples. Let's see. Chapter 9 is called You Can Crash Into Me. Crash Into Me was a song by the band Matchbox 20. Chapter 14 is called I'm Just a Cheeseburger in Paradise, which is by Jimmy Buffett. I've got a blank space, baby. I've got a blank space, baby, and I'll write your name. That's obviously Blank Space by Taylor Swift. Chapter 23. And for one more example, You're Still the One That I Love is obviously You're Still the One by Shania Twain. So I really think that Ashley Poston did a really great job by deciding to name the chapters after song titles. It really kept the book engaging because every time I turned a page, I was interested to see what song title would be the next chapter heading. There is a lot of discussion of burnout and Sounds Like Love. Have you ever experienced burnout yourself? And if you have, how did you overcome it? This question, I feel, is very timely because actually I deal with a lot of burnout when I make these YouTube videos, especially because I think the main reason why is because Kathleen and I had a conversation about this not long ago when we were talking about our podcast on Gilmore Girls and Friends, because we believe the reason why we suffer from burnout is because we have to consume a lot of content in between the filming of each episode of the podcast because we have stuff we need to review. And we also have a long list of books to read to get through to review. And as I said at the beginning, I started this TBR for Friends and Gilmore Girls related books last September, and then Kathleen and I started reading books for it together in January. But still, regardless of when we started reading books, I lost track of how many books that we have read since the beginning of the year for this TBR, but it's probably over 50. And we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago about how we're consuming a lot of content for this podcast and we're kind of burning ourselves out by watching so many movies or TV show episodes that are either from Gilmore Girls or Friends or other TV shows or movies with Friends or Gilmore Girls characters in them, such as One Tree Hill, which we actually haven't started to watch yet. We're starting to watch that on Saturday. Birds of America, Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sydney, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, etc. So once this TBR ends in December, we're looking forward to actually not sticking to a specific schedule for watching TV shows and movies and being able to have more variety in what we watch. We're still going to be watching Gilmore Girls, obviously, but we won't be watching as many other things to review for YouTube because we're going to be watching other shows that we haven't gotten a chance to watch, which we're excited about watching. Speaking of the podcast, our next episode is going to be out on Friday, September 26th. And then for the rest of the year, the episodes will be out on the second Friday of the month. So October's episode will be out on October 19th. November's episode will be out on November 15th. December's episode will be out on December 13th. And I wanted to also remind people that I am now accepting pre-orders for the Friends and Gilmore Girls crossover fan fiction that Amelia is helping me self-publish. That will be on sale at the art show for Double House on Friday, December 12th from 5:30 to 7:30. The book will be sold for $15. So please send any inquiries about that to the Double House Arts Instagram. Or you can, if you don't think the message will get to me through the Double House Instagram, you can just leave me a comment on this video or private message me on Facebook or Instagram, and I will be sure to reply. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for watching.